An innocent girl. A harmless drive. What could possibly go wrong?
Around the clock, we're gonna rock to the rhythm of the street. Up and down the block. Around the clock, we're gonna rock the dreams you give. The streets can talk. Wanna be somebody, be a contender. Gotta reach for the sky. If you want it, fight for it, or kiss it goodbye. Just make it or break it. Try to survive. Don't ever say never. Keep your dream alive.
He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast. Yet another Thursday night live stream. Blake, what is going on?
Not much, man. What about you?
Nothing, really. I mean, nothing. Absolutely nothing to talk about.
I got to tell you, super excited about this one. I honestly feel this is our best movie to review that's non-31 Days of Horror.
Really? You think that highly of License to Drive?
I had so much fun watching this last couple of days.
I tell you what, I had fun putting together the slides. And, you know, as we enter this stream with completely 1,000% less stress than what we had last week at this time, everything was done well before it was time to go live. And I agree 100%. The pictures I put together, this is going to end up being the most slides that we've had in a live stream yet. So really good movie. Well, let me put it this way.
It's a really good movie. Really good movie.
It's a movie that I'm very fond of, nostalgic for. I love the Coreys, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, let's just, what makes this movie so special, Ronnie, is that the message of it, or not the message of it, but it still has that feeling. Like, so as a kid, you look at this movie and you're that kid that's looking forward to getting your license because it's representation of freedom. Now, as an adult, you look back on that time as special because it was special when you were studying to take your permit test that I failed, by the way. And it was special when you finally got your license and got to go out for the first time. I mean, it's like, I think that's something that's never going to change. You know, everything's always constantly changing, you know, what kids like to do and stuff, but kids are always going to be excited to get their driver's license.
One thing I like about this movie is it doesn't take itself too seriously, obviously. And there's so many like awesome shots in the movie, and we'll get to them here in a minute, of where it just makes it seem fun. And I came out of this movie, one, still loving it, and two, wanting to know more about Les and his family. I would love to see just another movie involving Les and his family and all the other stuff that they go through, because this is another one of those movies where it's sort of like The Burbs, and the fact that you look at the neighborhood and you're like, I want to live there.
I want to live there. I want to go to that school. I want to be friends with all these people. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like everyone who is a part of this, even the background characters, just seem special to me. I don't know. I really enjoy this movie a lot.
All right. So big day today. We put out another Scream video, and me and you met privately after we filmed a couple of Scream videos. And pretty much I just said, hey, I don't want to do any more of these Scream videos. I don't have any fun with them. And you were like, that's perfectly fine. I hate horror. So here, let's make this agreement right now. As much as I would love to do these Scream videos, and I'm not saying we're not going to do another one, I just don't want to do consistent Scream content about a mask or a new picture. I think what we've done so far is probably all we need to do. We had a little fun with who we thought was going to live and die, and the other one was about the stew debate that everybody's arguing about. And I think until like some real news pops up, just let it lie. And if we do any updates, I say we put that on our shorts page so they can eat our shorts and watch that.
What did you say, Bender?
Eat my shorts.
In the chat, what's up, Nick Push? He says, Blake, did Ronnie drive you around after he got his license? The answer is no. I don't think I was allowed to ride with Ronnie for about, what would you say, 2 years, Ronnie, after you got your license?
Yeah.
Maybe even 3 years.
Didn't take me long.
Didn't you run into a mailbox your very, very first time riding in your truck? Because you were reaching for a cassette tape or something?
It wasn't the very first time. It was like 6 months after I got my truck. I don't even get halfway down. I don't even get into the next house, and I'm reaching down into the floorboard to get a cassette that I was returning to the VHS store, and I accidentally swerved over and hit the neighbor's mailbox. So, I mean, here's another good question from Nick. Who has more DUIs? Absolutely 0 DUIs, Nick.
0 between the both of us. You can't get a DUI if you don't get caught.
It's not a DUI if you don't get caught. Though I will say this, one member of ATGNAT got 3 DUIs in a 6-month span and found out very quickly the state of Tennessee, if you got enough money, lets you buy those DUIs back. So just for a few grand, that DUI disappears. We'll let him talk about it one day. But yeah, back to the Scream stuff. I say that's just not us. That's just not us. And as we're still trying to find an identity to what our channel does, just want to have fun, Blake. Girls just want to have fun. And yeah. I love the movie reviews. I love the fantasy drafts. I love when we do our tier shows. I love our topics with Boz. And
where is Boz?
Boz
we have not seen Boz since the Christmas movie draft, and all these new trailers have dropped. We hadn't got any trailer reviews. He's the Scream guy in this group, and he has not participated in any of the Scream videos. So have you heard anything from him?
Boz reached out today, and after watching our video that we released today, Who Lives, Who Dies, he said he's back in on the Scream content. I didn't have the heart to tell him that we probably wouldn't be doing much Scream content. But the good thing about having 15 people as a member of your channel is he's free to record whatever content he wants, and I'll put it up. I mean, that's the great thing. I let all these guys go nuts. I mean, what'd Tim do? He went and did an interview with a business. I mean, he got us an ad. I just haven't posted it up yet. I mean, dude's a go-getter. So, and me and you do this. I mean, here somebody actually asked, where's Macho Theater right now? I'm trying I'm trying to get Macho Theater to be Jay and Tim. The problem is Jay just needs a chance, and he won't schedule any time to watch a movie and record. And I really don't have the time between me and Blake doing this, me and Blake doing other little segments for the channel. There's no time for me to do Macho Theater as well. Boz absolutely refused to go into Macho Theater and take my spot. It was a hard no from Boz. So
I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. Macho Theater's tough.
Well, I mean, you got to love watching old action movies that nobody's ever heard of. But anyway, one thing that I'm excited about, and we'll let you guys know at the end of the channel, is at the end of the stream, is that me and Blake have already plotted our next month and a half of live streams on Thursday nights at 8. So we've got a really good lineup for everybody, which I think is a good lineup of movies we can talk about, movies that are known, action movies, and a few obscure movies that didn't make Blake happy, but he compromised and agreed. So
no, you compromised. I mean, I felt like it wasn't like it usually is. It wasn't a Ronnie-dominated movie list. You know, I felt like you heard what I was saying and met me in the middle. So I'm very happy with the list, and I'm excited to show everybody what we're going to be reviewing the next 2 months. Or next month, I should say.
Yeah, for the next month.
It's just January and first week of February.
Yeah, I guess we should go ahead and put it out there. That way it's in the universe. Even though we said we won't be doing constant Scream content, we have agreed that leading up till Scream 6, me and Blake and sometimes Boz, if he can make it, will be doing live streams or movie reviews of Scream 1 through 5 leading up to the release of the new Scream movie. So that'll be the first time we've put that on the YouTube channel. So there you go. And that would
Great.
be a wrong guess. Wonderful. Nick says, got to be the guy that comes out of the pool in the intro. No, it's not Jay that has the 3 DUIs that he paid off in Tennessee. Nice guess, though. So we want to get right to it, or you got anything else?
Hey, Nick, while you're guessing in the chat, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button for us, buddy?
Yeah, if you're here watching, make sure you hit the like button. Apparently, hitting the like button on the live stream helps with the algorithm. If you guys feel so inclined to donate to the channel, the Venmo is right down there. If you want to follow us on any of our socials, we got Instagram, we got Twitter, and we've got a Patreon, which is probably the cheapest Patreon that you can get. And when you look at it, it's probably like a donation too. Don't feel obliged to do it. We just got it there so we can pay the light bill. All right, so let's lead into it. Let me get everything pulled up as we start our review of License to Drive. Boom.
Dead.
What's dead? What are you talking about?
Corey Haim.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. I love the intro, Blake, to this movie. And this is the first time I've done this, showing the actual credits. But it's so 80s with the color, with the font. You got Corey Haim, you got Corey Feldman, and they hit you with the License to Drive with the great 80s music behind it. No better way to start a teen 80s movie.
I agree. This intro is beautiful. And I will say this about the soundtrack. You know, you get Baby, You Can Ride My Car. You get Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car. Two fantastic songs from the 80s. But you also get a great soundtrack from Frank Sinatra. And like most of the songs played in this movie are by Frank Sinatra from like the 50s, because his grandfather's Cadillac eats his mixtape he made for Mercedes, and All That Will Work is what's in Grandpa's car. So I love how it's just not random old music being played. There's a reason behind it. So I really love that.
I don't think you got to experience that, Blake, where you have to put the boom box or you have to put your tape recorder next to the stereo to record the songs off the radio to be able to make a mixtape.
I was on the back end of it. I was calling the radio station, requesting this song, and then recording it really fast when it came on. And that was, for me, late 90s. I'd say 98, 99. And I don't really remember doing it after that.
Obviously, I'm an 80s guy, and I think to an extent you're an 80s guy, even though you were born late 80s. No, there are no better teen movies as far as getting you in the mood of, hey, this is a teen movie with either music or intro or graphics like 80s teen movies. It just wasn't the same in the 90s as it was in the 80s as far as getting you in the mood for whatever hijinks is fixing to happen in this movie.
Yeah. So this opening scene, watching this 100 times as a kid and teenager, Ronnie, never really knew what they were parodying until you and I did 31 Days of Horror this past October, and we watched Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Yeah.
And they're parodying that, right? That
Yes.
opening dream sequence. Yeah. So it was nice to get answers to that question I had all those years.
Well, there's so much right about this opening sequence, from the mood, the music. Like, I mean, you got the bus driver right here who I immediately recognized as the guy that works in the hotel at in the movie Ghostbusters. He's the one that he's like, oh, $5,000. I never knew it was so high. I refuse to pay it. And they're like, okay, we'll just put it back. No. And he's like grabbing them because they just caught Slimer. He is a great character actor. But what I want to point out to you, Blake, is the whole bus here. It's filthy. All the kids look like heroin addicts, which they probably became later in life. Just the whole background scene is fantastic. It's really good. It's a really good opening. I mean, check that out right there. They all like zombies.
Yeah, they do a really good job of like setting the tone of what it's like to ride the bus. And as a kid that age riding the bus, it did suck. You know, what are you laughing at?
Because everybody's got that story. If you had to ride the bus, and I think it gave you character if you had to ride the bus to school, especially in the South. I remember the first time I was, could remember somebody getting made fun of. They were a senior in high school and they were riding the bus, and I was like fourth or fifth grade, and I could just hear all the, the eighth and ninth graders making fun of this senior that had to ride the bus to school. But there comes a time when you think, I'm too cool to be on the school bus. I can't ride this with these children anymore. And that's what you're getting right here. Nobody here is happy to go to school. And I think that was like a product of the 80s where not every, but 95% of teen movies just portrayed high school as the absolute worst.
And that's a great point by you mentioning, in the South, because we didn't really have the option down here. Like, Nick probably had, where he grew up in Milwaukee, to walk to school or to ride your bike to school. Like, that's not an option down here. Like, if you wanted to go to school, you were either a car rider or you rode the bus. That was it.
And sometimes these buses ran at 6 o'clock, like 2 hours before school actually started, because they had to go such a long way to pick up a large amount of kids. And it would suck. I say it sucks. You look back at it fondly now. You wake up, you watch the Three Stooges because the cartoons haven't started yet. And Tom and Jerry, Popeye the Sailor Man, some Looney Tunes, and then the bus is there and you hop on, and the next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're getting to school. Yeah, but I mean, I often wondered what it would have been like to be in an area where, more of an urban area, where you'd wake up or even a suburban area where you'd wake up.
Like you see in movies, we would see kids walking in groups, on the sidewalk, walking to school. They would meet up at a certain bus stop and they would all just walk to school together. Like, and I kind of envied that a little bit because we had to ride these crappy bus with the fat, bus driver.
I love it.
I mean, it was the same. It was awful.
Same scumbags on there that you see today that are still scumbags. People making fun of people. Is it your day to get made fun of? Is it my day to get made fun of? Let's go. But yeah, this whole opening scene, it goes back and forth between all these depressed, almost zombified, nightmarish looking kids. And you see a kid trying to chisel, because they're all bolted to their seats so they can't escape. And it's Les Anderson trying to get away, trying to break the chains and get away from school. I love it when I give the pause and you don't say anything.
Yep.
They stop. Okay, here's the scene. And I didn't get the actual screenshot because I didn't need the point. But if you look behind these cats, if you look behind them, there's mud smeared and dirt all over these like wet windows. And he pulls up and the bus stops at a stop sign and he works that mud back and he's able to see Mercedes Lane, Heather Graham, the girl of his dreams, in this Ferrari right here. And he looks at her and she's just sitting there by him. And the bus driver sees it, locks the doors, stomps it, turns around and gives him that face and is laughing and screaming as he drives him away from his dream girl. I mean, you couldn't have said it clear enough that this parody of Nightmare on Elm Street without actually showing you Nightmare on Elm Street is actually, it's a really great opening.
Yeah. And you got, fresh 18-year-old Heather Graham looking smoking fantastic. I think Corey Haim is 16 in this movie. I think I read he was 16 and he was actually in the process of getting his license while filming this.
Yeah, he turned 16. They had his 16th birthday party during this movie. Heather Graham, never been a fan, so not a big fan in here. And I'll talk about a little bit later why Mercedes Lane is a piece of trash. But great stunt scene right here where he actually dives out the window of the bus while the bus is going, does his little Oklahoma roll, and runs back there to grab the Ferrari and takes off. So the next part of the movie is a chase scene where the bus driver is trying to get him back on the bus. It's actually a pretty good little chase scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. And I mean, at this point, you're like, what are we doing? How long is this dream going to go on? because you got a bus driver is chasing after this kid. I mean, why is he doing it? He's going to risk the lives of all the other kids on the bus just to get this one. I mean, it's pretty comical when you think about it.
They're going down the alleyways and stuff like that. It looks like Big Trouble in Little China.
That's a really good chair right there.
Let me back it up. Where?
That leather chair.
Oh, wow. That is a nice little chair right there. It's like a recliner.
Yeah.
He runs right through that thing. So at this point, what you see right here, at this point, Corey Haim starts hearing the voice from the video they're watching in class. And you find out that he is actually asleep in class, and the whole class is watching one of these instructional videos in driver's ed, like Blood on the Highway. And I want to talk about that real quick. Have you ever seen any of those? Are those on YouTube, Blake? Like the Blood on the Highway and Blood Runs? They used to show like the most horrible videos to kids. I watched one of them when I was in driver's ed, where it showed people getting run over and dying in car wrecks and stuff like that. And they had to break out the 16 millimeter or whatever it's called to watch it. And I remember the first time they broke that out and they showed us Blood on the Highway about kids getting run over. And I was like, Jesus. I mean, do we have to be
I never got to experience those videos, but I'm sure they're on YouTube. I mean, everything's on YouTube.
We should review that for the Patreon, the blood on the highway and stuff like that. We should like just sit there and MST3K it. But he's asleep in class, and he's starting to the noise in the classroom is starting to bleed over into his dream. And that wanted to lead me to another question, Blake. This often happens to me all the time when I'm dreaming. If I'm listening to a podcast or a movie, at some point in the dream, the noise that I'm listening to when I go to sleep starts taking over my dream. If I'm listening to a wrestling podcast, it turns into a wrestling themed dream. If I'm listening to a movie, it turns into that. Does that happen to you, or am I a weirdo?
No, it definitely happens. And that's what makes this scene so great, is I think everybody can relate with that. I mean, for instance, this morning, I was dreaming about being successful, and then all of a sudden I hear Nick Push talking about Scream in my head, and I wake up horrified.
Why?
But this is a good point that we're skipping over, though, Ronnie. Like, he is asleep during the lesson here,
yes.
and the teacher is specifically saying, or the video that he's supposed to be watching is specifically saying, when you drive over a puddle, do not slam on the brakes, do not accelerate, or
you can have some plane.
Right. And of course he's not paying attention, and he's going to fail his test.
Well, my favorite part of the dream is back in the dream, they drive through some gasoline, and he lights a cigarette for the 16-year-old right there, and they throw the match back there, and it blows up the bus and everybody else. So in this dream, before he wakes up, he kills the bus driver and everybody on the bus. It's absolutely great.
Well, and what's great is the bus driver is the teacher in the classroom too. So in his dream, he killed his teacher.
You find out it's Les Anderson. That's his twin sister right there. They're sitting in driver's ed class. The girl right here with the classic 80s hair.
Oh,
he's like, what's the deal with your brother? He slept through the whole course. Does he have mono? No, he's just brain dead. And here you go. Like you said, the teacher in the class is the bus driver, the evil bus driver that he was dreaming about. And this dude just reads in the riot act. He goes, hey, it's punks like you that they have to scrape off the road at 3 a.m. I hope you burn in hell. I'm like, Jesus. I wanted to talk about this. You're probably asking, why did I take a screenshot of I will drive safely? What were they thinking in the 80s? Whenever you got in trouble, I had to do this when I was in elementary school. They would make you fill up the blackboard with the thing that you did wrong. I will not make fun of people. I will not be a smart ass. I will drive safely. I mean, and sometimes they would make you go until the chalk was completely gone.
So you had the blackboard when you were little? You didn't?
Oh, dude, not only, and when I was in elementary school, not only did we have the blackboard, but I remember when the teachers, the teachers were like, they thought they were something whenever the chalk holders came into play. It was like these rounded things that you drop the chalk in, so like a mechanical pencil, except you just drop the chalk down in there, and they didn't have to get chalk on their hands. They thought there was something else. that the whiteboards didn't start transitioning into the classroom until I was like 6th or 7th grade. So I got to experience the wonderful world of the green and the black chalkboard, and having to, if you got in trouble, bring the bucket in there and wash off the board at the end of every day and take the erasers out to the tree and beat them against the bark until they were clean.
That's awful. I think I only had one blackboard. I think pretty much my whole school was dry erase.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing that was pretty cool. I do remember in high school, towards the end, they pulled away some whiteboards and you could see blackboards from like 20 years earlier that still had stuff written on it. So that was pretty cool. I mean, to me,
I don't think I like the sound of chalk on a board. I don't think I like that. Like if a teacher was writing a constant lesson for you to copy, like I don't know if I could handle that.
Yeah, but you didn't know any better, though. I mean, that's just what that's what your ears will be conditioned to hearing because that's just what you've always heard. I mean, the thing that was crazy is when these douchebags would take their nails and take it across that board. That really would hurt your ears. So him having to stay after in class causes him to miss the bus. And I got this shot for this right here because this is real school because all the buses left at the same time. And if you take a look at that bus in the front right there. It's rounded. I don't think I've ever seen a bus like that before. All the buses I was always on looks like the squared off bus right here. I know that's nitpicking.
Yeah, but it was a short bus though.
His sister, who's established herself as a heel early on and doesn't really add anything to the movie other than the fact to be the better twin, is constantly screwing with him. Luckily for him,
I got notes on her. His sister character named Natalie. She was the hot blonde in the movie Airheads that Adam Sandler hooks up with. Yeah. She's also 18 years old, exact same age as Heather Graham in this movie.
Oh, Heather Graham was 18 in this movie?
Heather Graham had just turned 18 because I was trying to do some math. 10 years later, she would go on to do Austin Powers. And I was like, wow, she was only like 29 in that Austin Powers movie. That's crazy.
Nick Push weighing in was about to Venmo another $200 until Blake made that Nick Push crack. Guess I'll donate to the slaughtered lamb instead. Hey, we never did thank we thank Nick Push for donating $200 last week?
We didn't. We just mentioned it. We didn't really, tell him how much we appreciate it because we didn't notice. That is one thing about Venmo. It's like we didn't get the notification until it was too late.
Yeah, so thanks, Nick, for donating $200. I know it's just a drop in the bucket for what you do, but we really do appreciate it. Let's enter Dean, a.k.a. Corey Feldman, right here on screen, Blake. We've got the Coreys in their second ever movie looking absolutely as cool as 80s can be. Now, I think this may be my favorite Corey Feldman role. And I'm thinking right now, I'm letting it all go through my head because I'm sure I'm just throwing it out there. I think this is my favorite Corey Feldman performance. I know he was in Goonies. I know he was in Friday the 13th. I know he was ridiculous in The Lost Boys, but it's charming. I know. Okay, so I think this is my favorite Corey Feldman performance because he plays the best friend so well. Nick Push says The Burbs is his favorite Corey Feldman performance. And I will say this, Nick, he's got some really good, funny scenes in The Burbs, especially with Rumsfeld when he tells him to paint his GD house. But overall, for the entire body of work, I think I'm going to go with this as my iconic Corey Feldman performance. This is what I like him the most in and have zero complaints about him.
Well, I agree at 1,000%. And you can go ahead and throw Corey Haim in that quote as well. For me, like this is in my opinion, whether they're together or not, this is both their best movie for me. I realize Goonies is a classic. I realize that, but I'm talking about their individual performance. I like this movie the best.
Yeah, because without mouth, Goonies is still great. Goonies is still a great story. I mean, it's not like it was an iconic performance. This right here, I'm not sure this movie is as good without Corey Feldman as his best friend. And I know Corey Feldman auditioned for the role of Les Anderson, and he didn't get it. And supposedly these guys were really close friends, but at the same time, they were like fierce rivals trying to go after all the same roles, and then had to get old. And had to put a strain. I'm sure there's a book or 10 out there talking about these guys, but they had to put a strain on whatever friendship they had, that they were always competing for these roles. But then I also go back to be an actor, you got to be messed up a little bit, right? I mean, those people are messed up. There's like no normal actors.
Gary Busey?
Well, yeah, Gary Busey, that's because he busted his head open. But let's think about this for a second. If anybody watching this video had a chance to go do a movie and make $15 million, what are you going to do after that movie? Most normal people are going to go disappear and live off of that $15 million. All right. So these people just keep doing these movies over and over and over and over. And when it's all said and done, they're pathetic and broke still. So I put actors in the same boat as professional wrestlers and strippers in the fact that they're broken human beings. And it's sad. It really is.
But yeah, I agree with you. Corey Feldman is his best movie.
He rolls up, and of course, they're looking at Mercedes Lane, and this guy that's 40 rolls up and picks up this 16-year-old high school student. And if white privilege had a picture, it would be Heather Graham in License to Drive. She sits down with this guy who is Eurotrash, obviously, child molester, and boom, they're gone, and almost run over them as they're leaving. She doesn't know Les Anderson exists. She's in her own little world. She's a horrible human. And I don't know what this dude's story is. I'm sure if this movie was set in like 2023, he's like a sex trafficker or something. But in the 80s, it was okay because nobody cared. This is this whole relationship with him and her is like really confusing. Really confusing.
That's Paulo. That's Paulo. He's a Mexican god. He's really good looking. Early 20s, by the way. He's not in his 40s.
He's 20 he was 20 in real life. I don't know how old he's supposed to be in this movie because he's not in college.
He also plays Jim Morrison in Wayne's World. Remember the dreams? Yeah, the one who's always doing this. Yeah, that's Jim Morrison in the Wayne's World movie.
That is Jim Morrison from Wayne's World 2.
Yes.
Holy crap. I did not know that. So he's got an accent in this movie. He's doing an accent.
Yeah, he's an actor.
I'm perspiring. I don't like to perspire. And look, she says,
Mercedes, don't do this.
Look, I got this right here just because I couldn't stop staring at these two guys, or girl and guy, in the background. They're skateboarding, and they are doing the absolute best background acting I've ever seen. Like, this one dude has got like some kind of, I think it's a dude, mullet hybrid going on here. And this other guy looks like a cross between Skolnick and the Chinese guy from 16 Candles. And I just wanted to point out that I do appreciate what they're doing in the back. Look at the size of the tongues on those shoes, on those sneakers that one dude's got.
Yeah, and this is from 100 yards away, so up close, that's big. I mean, are they squaring up on each other? Like, I didn't even notice this watching it live, Ronnie. You're going to have to fill me in. Are they squaring up on each other? And I mean, what's this chick so mad about?
This is going to sound ridiculous. I'm doing the wording I'm fixing to use. No, they're just in the background playing. They're on the skateboards, skating, doing that stuff from like what was the Super Troopers movie where they're on the island? Oh my goodness, what was the name of the Super Troopers? Broken Lizards, Club Dread.
Club Dread.
It reminds me of the guys in Club Dread where they're hugging and stuff in the background. And you have to really look and zoom in, because what's happening during this scene is Corey Feldman, Dean, is telling Les Anderson, the only difference between you and that guy is he's got a license and you don't. Like, Dean is really talking up Corey Haim as far as, you're finna have the license And dude, we're going to be ready to go. So I just wanted to pay attention to these guys right here because they are great. Like I said, they almost got run over. And I noticed something in here. Is Corey Haim's hair dyed in this movie? Because it looks like it's at least reddish.
I think you're right, because there are certain scenes where it's darker, and then you get a scene like this right here where it's lighter. So I do think that they touched it, which I know I did read that they did some reshoots, a bunch of reshoots after the fact. So, who knows? And
I got a feeling I know where the first ending of this movie is. And when we get there, I'm going to point it out. But I think there was, I know what happened after the reshoots, and I know one of the original endings for the car. But I got a feeling I understand. I think I know where the movie originally ended. Now, is there anything, Blake, more 80s than riding on the handlebars of a bicycle?
Nah, man, that's about as 80s as it gets. You got he's got his britches rolled up down there, showing his socks. I mean, I really enjoyed this scene. You get some POV from the bike, and they're dodging stuff, running through yards, and then of course he stops short in the yard and rolls him up. So
they run this fat guy right off the. He's trying. Look, here's another thing I want to talk about the 80s. People that jogged, they got dressed up. I mean, I know today people put on their what do they call their leggings and their underarm. Yeah, but this guy right here, he's got his swim trunks. He's got the headband. He's got the wristbands. If you pay attention right there, this was as clear a shot as I could get off the TV. And he's got his tank top, and they run him straight off the sidewalk. By the way, looks like $1 billion neighborhood that they're going through.
Yeah.
Great scene here of the Coreys as they're going through bushes and everything. This is just a fun scene. This is such a fun scene in this movie that shows, look, you got to have some trust for somebody to jump on the handlebars of their bike. You really do. That's got to be your boy if you do that, and he has no problem.
I mean, it's just two cokeheads having fun, man.
So this scene right here always made me laugh as a kid and made me laugh as an adult the other day. This one dude struggling to get up this hill, and they come flying by at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Golly, that looks like our dad going up that hill.
Hold on.
Got him tucked into the.
He dumps him right here in this front lawn of this beautiful house and just manicured lawn. It looks great. So, I mean, this is where we're introduced to Corey Haim's family, and of course, the mode of transportation for this entire movie. What kind of car did you say this was?
That is a 1972 Cadillac sedan DeVille, Ronnie, and they bought like 9 of them.
Yeah, they bought 9 of them for this movie. And Les explains to him, because Corey Feldman uses a line that I've used before when it comes to a big car. He goes, "You think your dad will let us drive this old boat out around town?" Because Les is fixing to take his driver's exam, and they're assuming they're going to have their license by Saturday night. So Dean's got the whole weekend already planned out. We're going to have license, we're going to have a car and all that. So here's something I've never experienced. I guess because we don't have a close, tight-knit family, extended family anyway. So the grandpa has this car is like 16 years old and it's got 20,000 miles on it, is what they say. He came and borrowed his dad's car to go on a trip. Meanwhile, he's going to put this one in his garage. So we to assume that this grandpa is never going anywhere, because you would think he would have another car to travel in, considering this Cadillac has such low mileage on it. Why is he?
No, the Cadillac does have 20,000 miles on it. He just doesn't take it on long trips, is what Les told Dean. Yeah, so he just borrowed the car and left it with them. But I love the fact that apparently Les's dad and mom don't keep cars in the garage because they have to clean out the garage just to put the caddy in there. And this is when we're introduced to the father, who we know is played by Richard Masur. And you know him from our favorite movie, The Thing. He's also the dad in Encino Man. He's the Michael Keaton's boss in Multiplicity, and one of our favorite baseball movies. He's in 61.
Really? What is he in 61?
He's one of the reporters writing the story, Ronnie, at the end about Roger Maris.
Yeah, you can lecture me about it, but I don't think I've seen 61 since the year it came out.
Oh, okay.
What year did it come out? Let's do a little bit of quick research here.
I think it came out in 61.
Is that the reason they called it
No.
61?
No, it's Billy Crystal. I want to say 01, 02, something like that.
I think you're right, but I'm gonna look now. I can't stand it. Can't stand you.
Yeah, but he plays. He works for the
call.
papers.
Good call. He's like Randy Orton. He's going to take it to the papers.
That's it. That's it. And I really like. I don't know if I like this actor or if I like this character, Ronnie. But whatever this is, this dad is perfect. I wish this was my father.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think he might be the best character in this movie. And I know that's a stretch in a movie that I just said was the best movie that had the two Coreys in it. But this guy right here does an amazing job of being a likable parent. You can tell he lets them get away with a little bit, but at the same time, they all respect and fear him. He's a really good guy. Why the heck are they having babies this late in life? I don't know. He's probably younger than me. I don't understand. I'm going to echo what you just said. I think it's the actor and the character. I think he plays this character so good. There's like no faults about him. I don't think there's any faults about him in this whole movie, unless you can probably say he's too lenient on the kids. Like he would have killed Let.
He is too lenient. In fact, this might be Corey Haim's real father, and that's the way Corey turned out the way he did. But that is the only problem I have with this movie, Ronnie. And I know it was the case with a lot of 80s movies. Is Les doesn't really learn a lesson. He does a lot of things wrong, and he doesn't learn a lesson. And this dad lets him get away with way too much. And it isn't like the dad kind of provokes it a little bit. And I know we're going to get into it because you made 200 slides, but like the dad encourages him to drive without a license first. Like he's the first one to do that. Like dad lets him do that. And then obviously we know what happens to, yeah. Okay. And then obviously we know what happens at the end and it's just skimmed over. It's like, hey, don't worry about it. Insurance, we'll get it fixed before grandpa even knows. Like nothing happens to these kids ever. I mean, I know I'm like contradicting myself here. I do love the character. I do love the dad, and I feel like he's a good dad, but it also feels like he wants to be buddies instead of being a father sometimes.
I'm going to disagree. I think he has a fine line there because he does. Here in a second, we'll get to the scene where he does flip out, and he does flip out at the end. But the scene is such an emotional scene that I can't blame him once they get to their destination for doing what he did. But like you said, they're cleaning the old boxes out of the out of the garage to move the Cadillac in. And we're introduced to the family. I wish I'd have known this chick's name, but I remember her from Taxi, the few episodes I've seen that. And
Carol Kane.
Carol Kane, the episode of Seinfeld where she gets hit in the head with a pocket organizer. She's pregnant. I wanted to discuss this meal right here. We've got a huge
second live review in a row that we have multiple Seinfeld people in this movie, Ronnie.
Who's the second?
When we get to him, I'll show you.
Okay. So right here, a huge clump of mashed potatoes, and she covers it with ketchup. And the whole table, we're introduced to the whole family, by the way. He has a younger brother as well. They're all just looking at what their mother's eating. So I'm going to ask this question, Blake. Is it so gross to put ketchup on mashed potatoes?
No, it's not gross. Well, first off, I've never done it, but I mean, French fries are potatoes. Tater tots are potatoes. Hash browns are potatoes. And that's all things I've ate ketchup with. So I don't think it would be gross to do ketchup and mashed potatoes. But I mean, have I ever tried it? No, but I'm not going to. And plus she's pregnant, she wants weird stuff. So
she looks at all of them and says, I ate the same thing when I was pregnant with each and every one of you, and you all turned out normal. I'm glad you just took my argument from me. If you dip a French fry in ketchup, then you can't complain about somebody putting ketchup on mashed potatoes. It's all the same thing. So there you go. During this conversation, Les asked his dad, did you happen to look over the brochure that I gave you? And the dad's like, oh, certainly. I think it's a great idea. $23,000 BMW for somebody that's 16 years old and never had a job. So he has asked his dad for a BMW, and later on here in a few slides, you're going to find out the dad was actually going to get him, or I got a question. Was the dad actually going to get him the BMW?
Yes, he was.
One of the better scenes in the movie. Dean and his mom come rolling up, and he honks the horn and lays on the horn for a good 45 seconds before the mother and dad say, "Get the hell out." And he gets in the car. So I got this right here. Nothing says 80s Coke party like this scene right here. This party that they're getting dropped off. Look at the amount of cars that we have in this driveway right here. You couldn't fit another car in the driveway. You got lights here. This is obviously a $3 million home. You got to see a Camaro, or there's Z28 over there. You got people walking in, hugging and making out. You got people gathered around. This is obviously a great 80s house party.
It's just so pretty, man. I mean, look how pretty that is.
And we've all been where this next slide's taking us. The mom is going to drop them off right outside, and they're freaking out going, "You got to take us around the corner." And she goes, "Is there something wrong with the car?" And he's like, "No, nothing's wrong with the car. You're driving."
You left something out. She sounded Canadian when she said it. She said, "Dean, is there something wrong with the car again?" But I looked it up. She's not Canadian.
Was she the one that played like the homeless woman in Wings? Because she looks a lot like the one that Roy banged that was a homeless woman.
I'll be honest, I didn't do a lot of research on her, so I couldn't tell you that. I did look up everybody else and what everybody else was in, but I did not look her up.
What do you think happened to this little girl right here riding shotgun? Where do you think she ended up in life?
She is probably in one of those direct-to-video movies with Corey Haim a couple of years later.
There you go. So she takes him around the corner. These guys right here, after doing research, I was wondering, why didn't these guys play a bigger role? And they did, but they just cut them out. But when they get her, Dean gets his mom to take him around the corner to drop him off. They're not there 20 seconds. And these guys roll up with the greatest line in the movie that I'm not going to repeat. But go watch this scene of the movie, and the mother just turns and looks at the camera like, "What just happened?" I mean, it's the best.
Dean apologizes for it. He's like, "Sorry, Mom, those are friends of ours." These guys are clearly like in their 30s. What are they doing there?
Dude's like Billy Idol. How come most of the bad guys in 80s movies, 80s teen movies look like Billy Idol?
I mean, all it takes is one. Once one sets that trend, then everybody has to look like that, you know. And then as Dean and Les are walking up to the party, their other buddy Charles gets dropped off right in front by his mom. He gets some mouth sugar from her. "Have a nice time, sweetie." And Dean immediately says, "Ignore him, ignore him." And they walk into the party ignoring him.
"Hey, it's me, Charlie." So they're just sitting in a corner, which lets you know these guys aren't the most popular people at this party. And they're sitting in the corner trying to decide cars that these girls hooked up in. And that's when we finally, you can't have an 80s movie without making fun of somebody fat, whether it's male or female. And there she is. They talk about how she probably hooks up in a garbage truck. Don't you know, I'm going to take you back to one of our best bits that we always talk about. When you audition for the role of the fat girl that they talk about hooks up with people in the garbage truck, you know she had to have read the script, and she still went for this role anyway. And look at this dude that's in love. He's got his jacket on.
Well, I like to think that she prepared for the role, Ronnie. She was probably like 105 pounds when she read the script, and then realized that she needed to gain weight, so she gained about 60 pounds.
So, like Christian Bale, she's a method actor.
Well, no, it's like Randy Savage, to prepare for his role in Spider-Man, he was a professional wrestler for 20 years. Thank you.
So,
Here comes Paulo. Don't do this.
There's multiple times in this movie where it feels like Corey Haim, Les Anderson, is breaking the fourth wall. And he stands up and he goes, Mercedes Lane. I've bumped into her a few times, but she's never bumped into me once, which that makes zero sense. You bumped into her. She obviously bumped into you. They show up at this party fighting. Okay. She seems like the biggest brat ever because this guy doesn't seem like a violent guy. He just doesn't want to go to a party with a bunch of 15-year-olds. He can date a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old. He's just not going to party with them. You got to respect that, and especially in the 80s. So why did he even go? It seems like he would have said, no, we're not going. I'm not going. It seems like when he pulled up and it was nothing but kids, he would have left.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the situation, Ronnie, is she said, hey, what if we go to one of my parties? And they get there and he's like, this is a kid's party. What are we doing? You know?
I don't know. And they break up right there in front of these guys. This is a great shot too, by the way. I'm proud of this shot because you got you got Corey Haim staring, you got Dean over to the side, you got Charlie all looking while she's saying, you don't just own me. And this is another thing that confused me. This is the question I wanted to bring up. He seems like he's European, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why does she bring up like Kuwait or Iraq? You just don't own people like Kuwait, like where you're from in Kuwait and Iraq. Is she just stupid? Does she not know where he's from?
I think she's stupid.
And she turns around and says, I got a date with this guy. And she points at Les and he goes, oh, me? And didn't we make arrangements? Yeah, but they're never finalized. Paulo gives her listen, Mercedes, I'm starting to perspire. I don't like to perspire. And he hits her with the chow and he's gone. Dude, when he says chow, it's over with. He cut ties right there. Never look back. Don't look back. I'm sure that's a song somewhere. So Les, the big thing the next day at school, another school bus scene, by the way. I've got to get as many in here as I can. And it could be the lighting because I thought maybe it was weird hair dye in Corey Haim's in his hair, but Charlie's hair looks reddish right there too. So it might just be the sunlight hitting.
Charles kind of has a Rick Moranis thing going on in this scene.
Dude, you're absolutely right. I was going to say he looks like somebody's gay mom, but you're right. He looks like Rick Moranis. And look at this big V-neck he's wearing. Look at the effort here to be a geek. You got the V-neck, and then you got
turtleneck
with it.
That was I'm glad you brought up the turtleneck because that was a question I have, Ronnie. Is I noticed during my last watch today of this movie, you can see Dean's breath at Archie's. What time of the year is this? Because if you look, they're all wearing long sleeve. It's got to be cold, right?
Yes. I would assume so.
Thank you.
Man, that's what I'm here for. This is okay. This is where it
Go
gets sad.
for it.
Exactly. This is where it gets sad. When I think about this movie, I think about a few things, and we'll talk about it at the end if I can remember. One of the things I think about are these two guys hanging out of the bus, screaming, go for it. And I don't have the next shot, but when it shows them again down the road, they're still hanging out the bus. They just say, hey, why don't you go over there and ask Mercedes if she still wants to go out with you? And of course,
you know, if they had a bus driver like we had when we were younger, they wasn't sticking their heads out the window, very long. Like that didn't happen when she put it in drive.
Absolutely not.
Come to the front now.
What was the deal with Airport Peanuts? What is the deal with the bus driver assigning seats? If you're like bad in the back, they just put you on the front.
It's pretty stupid. So Les walks right up to Mercedes and he's about to say, do we really have a date or not? And right when he gets right in front of her, we hear the horn honk. The camera pans over to Dad, who's in the Cadillac. Les, it's me, Papa.
And he walks off. He just runs away. He runs away and around the corner. Les, is there something wrong about having a father these days? He goes, Dad, what are you doing? He goes, I was out. Figured I'd pick you up, give you a test drive. And I guess this is what you're talking about encouraging him to drive the car without a license. Is this what you were talking about?
Well, no, because I actually think it's legal for what he's doing right now, especially back in 87, 88. What I have a problem with is him letting Les drive the car without him in it, without a license. That's illegal.
They're going around the neighborhood, and he spots Mercedes Lane walking home. And he tells his dad, he goes, look, you see that girl over there? That is the girl of my dreams. And, of course, this is the next thing I think about when I see this movie. Let's give her a cruise. This dude
okay, so you've said that quote during my lifetime at least 1,000 times. Ronnie, what does that mean? Can you break that down? What exactly that means to me? Like, okay, so when I first heard it, I thought it meant let's drive by her like really, really fast or something like that. But does that mean pick her up and let her ride around with y'all?
It means we're going to roll up there to her and let her take a cruise in the car.
Okay, look at his lips right here, man. It's so perfect. Like, he is so excited to share this experience with his boy, you know?
He's like the best father. He's like, okay, we're going to pick up your dream girl and give her a ride. Let's give her. And he's like, Dad, no, I want to go over and just swing by, ask her about a date, and see what happens. I'll come straight back. He goes, I'll never ask for another favor again. And he puts him out with all
Les, we both know that's not true.
He puts him out with the diapers. And as a dad that's got a kid that wears diapers, it doesn't look like it's that hard to hold. Those damn boxes are slippery. They are. He rolls up to her, Blake. He rolls up to her. Let me back it up. He rolls up to her, and she gets in the car, and he's just going to take her down the road a second. And she goes, but I'm going to see a friend somewhere. And it's like miles away. And he drives off, and the dad's like, Les. And anyway, when he drops her off, he gets her number, or she gets his number, one of the two, and they decide on a date for Saturday night. As he's driving back, he's got that look in his eyes like, I'm in deep crap.
Yeah, and the music playing is great. It's intense. He wanders up behind him. He sees him like stumbling. He's covered in sweat. He sees like the bags falling apart, the diapers going through the bags. I think he's only got one box now, and he started off with 3.
There's tracks on the sidewalk where he just leaves it.
His tie is almost completely undone, which means he got so hot he started pulling on that thing. It's just a great scene as he's growling, walking up to the window, and then we get the chew out scene with him and Carol Kane.
As a horror movie guy and as a huge Friday the 13th fan, I always thought they were trying to mimic the Jason Voorhees as he's walking close to the car. It was just, it's great. And he is reading. This is what I was talking about before we started the review. He is reading Les, the riot act. Meanwhile, the mom's doing stretches or yoga or something while she's pregnant. And Les is visibly scared. So that lets me know that he knows not to screw with his dad to a certain point. Okay. So I don't think he's as lenient as we think he actually is, because look at Les. That is fear right there that his dad's going to lay hands on him. Now, this might be the first movie where I noticed that somebody had an intercom system. Was that just a thing for the 80s and rich people? I mean, why do you need an intercom to talk to somebody in another room? Why can't you just walk over to the room?
Like, I get it for like enormous big houses, but yeah, you're right. Like, this doesn't. This may be a big house, but I don't get that feel. You know, it feels like kind of like the house we grew up in. This house feels like a living room, kitchen, decent little hallway, and a couple of bedrooms on each side. You know.
Yeah, let me back it up. Look, this is not just a huge house right here. You know, notice that. I know it's 2
Well, yeah,
stories.
and you saw the dinner table too. They were eating at. It ain't like it's Wayne Manor or anything.
This is more establishing scenes where you can see that the guys just pick on the sister constantly. He burps into the micro, well, I guess the intercom. And this is another scene where Les is refusing to study.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's amazing, Ronnie, what time will do. Like, as a kid, I thought this scene was hilarious, like them messing with the sister. But, like, as an adult, I'm like, there was no point in that. There was no point in making fun of the sister. She's not being rude to them. Like, the sister character is not, like, out to get him and not out to, it's not like the sister in Ferris Bueller or anything. Like, they're just being mean to her just for the heck of it. So
yeah, she's just really smart and she doesn't like him. And the reason they mess with her is because for some reason she's playing her classical music over the intercom of the entire house.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess could get you. This whole scene
Bozo.
is where that is Bozo hair, by the way. The Bozo Show, another thing that's just 80s rific. I mean, was that every day? Was the Bozo Show every single day on WGN?
Yes.
Amazing. The 80s were fantastic. I mean, you could wake up to the Bozo Show every day, the grand prize game, winning all those toys at the end of it. This whole scenario here at the DMV is amazing. Look at this room. Looks like something out of the Pentagon where they would take you to torture you. She is an absolute B, and they are taking their driver's ed test or their driver's license test on a computer, which is unheard of in 88. So the whole system is A, B, or C, which means he's got a 33% chance each time to get it right. A, B, or C. A, B, or C.
About that math.
He gets the first one right immediately. He's like, ha! A lot of mouth open acting in this movie for Corey Haim. Like, his mouth is constantly open when he's doing something. Somebody call that a mouth breather. But then he misses a question, and he starts to freak out, and we get the montage of incorrect. And his sister finishes with a perfect score and walks out smiling. And then you get, if you miss one more, you fail. And then he hits the wrong button, or you don't hit the wrong button. He just hits the wrong answer, and it hits him with "you have failed." And he stands up and he just smashes the crap out of the computer, and everybody's computer just shuts off. And they say,
let me say this, Ronnie, because as someone who failed their permit test and who also later in life took a CDL test and failed it, it is nerve-wracking when you get that warning, you cannot miss another question. It is very nerve-wracking. So this scene kind of hit home with me.
Let's see. I took my license test on paper and had to wait for the person to grade it, old school on paper. And my CDL test was on the computer too, but I didn't miss anything. So
brag.
That's what I do. Now, I'll check the chat here in just a second because I got to switch this out and add that right there as we head back, because this is multi-stream, people. Real quick, Nick Push chiming in saying The Burbs is his favorite Corey Feldman performance. And then Tim on his burner account dropping in to say cocaine. So there you go. Now,
nice.
Why couldn't they have pulled the memory from these computers? Because here's what they do. Here's the scenario. Him smashing that computer caused them not to be able to find anything, any kind of records. And they say, because your sister made a perfect score, we're going to let you take your driver's test. So did they let everybody take their driver's test, or just Les Anderson because his twin sister made a perfect score and they figured, well, we'll just let him go too. He must be smart.
I think it was just Les Anderson. And, how far can you be from your twin sister? Which I didn't realize they were twins, but it makes sense when you realize at the end the mom just had twins again. But
wow. Right. I didn't put that together.
But what's also telling about this, and I would like Nick or somebody else in the chat to weigh in, from where they're from, the DMV supplies the cars for the test, Ronnie. Like, I had to drive my own vehicle for my test, Yeah,
me too. I was wondering if, because the cars are out there and they're not all the same car, or are they? Are they all the same car? The little hatchback cars? I was
I
wondering
can't remember. I'm trying to think of Natalie's scene where, when she legit has a pedophile instructor. I was trying to think what kind of car she's driving, but I don't think they're all the same. I just know that the DMV supplies all the cars.
talking about homeboy there.
He's like, oh yeah.
I got a true blue pedophile groomer vibe from this guy right here. He gets in, awesome shirt, by the way. He gets in, he's her driving instructor. Meanwhile, Les Anderson gets in the car with Uncle Phil, aka the Shredder, and last name first name last. And he's got a simple way that he grades people. He throws the clipboard out the window.
Speak up, son.
He lets him know, you spill this coffee, I get burned, you fail. Which is great because that stuff almost spilled when he cranked the car up.
Yeah, just cranking the car up, it came to the brink. To the top.
Those scenes were so good in this movie of this whole thing right here. And it's such a 180 dynamic here. Uncle Phil takes Les Anderson to the most busy parts for his driving test. He's in this traffic right here. And he's like, I want you to get in that left lane. Do it now. Were you waiting on Christmas? And it's like nowhere to get in there. Meanwhile, the sister is in this little okay, this is where we can decide it. There's the car.
It looks like the same, huh?
Yeah, so okay. So I guess I didn't know if like the driving instructors were like independent contractors and they brought their own car as they got paid to do this. I guess that wouldn't make much sense either. But yeah, like you said, here in the South, you bring your own vehicle to do your driving test.
Ronnie, let's talk about James Avery for a second. First off, he's fantastic in this movie. I looked at his IMDb page, and if you take Fresh Prince off his credit, he has had a really, really good career. He has been in everything. He's been the voice of everything. And then when you add in the fact that he was one of the best TV dads of all time in Fresh Prince, with another 100 episodes of syndication of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, this guy's a legend, man. Like, I know we already knew that, but I just didn't realize how much stuff he was truly in. Like you said, he's got 100 episodes of Ninja Turtles as a Shredder. You know,
I didn't
he's
know
in
that
a ton of stuff, man. A ton of stuff.
Really good actor. Like you said, that would be a great fantasy draft. TV dads. He is right up there towards the top. And like I said it earlier, I didn't know he was the voice of Shredder till later on. I mean, that's a great career. Great career. So he's in traffic. She's making the block. She's doing what I had to do for my driver's test. He makes him come to a complete stop on this hill to the point where he has to lock in the parking brake. And he's got this old couple behind him going, "What the hell is this guy doing?" He goes, "What you waiting on, son? Let's go." It's just the scenes with these two are amazing. Natalie's got a parallel park. I'm gonna throw it out there, Blake. I can't drive worth a crap. I can't parallel park. I could parallel park in this big a space right here, but I suck at driving. Whether it's a vehicle, a small vehicle, I absolutely suck. That's the reason my wife will drive the majority of the places that we go for two reasons. One, I can't drive, and two, I barely get over 40 miles an hour just because. So if we want to get somewhere at a decent time, she'll just take over.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ronnie, but that's another perk of living in the South is parallel parking really doesn't exist down here, right?
True. It's true. You're absolutely right. But she gets to park right here. And then he's got a parallel park in this spot right here.
And I love how they don't close the door. Like, he still has to avoid that back door being open because that guy won't close it. It's the best, man. And look how the car says DMV on the side. I do think it is a DMV supplied car.
And not to mention the fact that these guys right here, they're moving tires from one side of the road to the other. They're walking in between this car while he's trying to back up. Nobody is even acknowledging that he's trying to park. And he gets it in there and parks it. It's awesome. And it goes to show you just how good of a driver that Les Anderson really is in this movie. I guess setting up for his wild night. At the end, he's like speeding through the parking lot and has to hit the brakes, and the cup flips 50 times and falls into James Avery's lap. And he goes, "You're in luck, Anderson. The cup was empty. See you on the battlefield sometime, soldier." And this whole new scene, these next few scenes right here really confuse me. They give him a license, and
Mouth
it's amazing.
open.
Mouth is open. 1992 is when it expires. Movie takes place in 88. Let's take a look. 5'6", 125, born in 72. It says his hair is blonde, blue eyes.
California.
Okay. The old lady walks up. He goes, "Please drive safe." And then he's looking in his book and he's like, "Hold on. Someone wants to talk to you." And you see like the slow-mo of her walking up. And she goes, "As you know, you failed," because they was able to retrieve the test scores. And she tears his license in half. I got so many problems with this scene right here, Blake. One, you can't tear a license like that. You can't. It doesn't work. The science is not there. Two, what if he would have just grabbed his license and walked out before that guy was able to call her over?
He would have been in the clear. Like, I mean, it was already done. The paperwork was done. He had the license. I mean, there was nothing they can do. But the fact that she called him over, tore his license up. I mean, I think you could argue that he's still in the system as having a license, right? I mean, that's what he was doing at that desk with that guy.
Not to mention the fact that, you know, it's not like it wasn't all digital then. They've entered him into the system, like you just said, as having a license. He's in there. They had to manually take him out. But I mean, what do I know?
But it really sets the tone of this guy once again. Like, he didn't study. He ignored people that were trying to help him study. He didn't take it serious. He failed. And then he catches another break and he don't have to pay for it. And then he gets to take his test and he passes. When now he gets his license taken away. So now we're on the way home.
People
and we got to tell the parents.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm going to go back to when I was in school, and this is, it seemed like when you're a teenager or you're a preteen, all this stuff happens. If you fail a test and you know you have to go home to tell your parents, they're always preparing something nice for you, and you have to ruin it by giving them that information. Or if you do something stupid and instead of doing your assignment on a Friday and you know you got to do it over the weekend to a Monday, everybody else is having fun. Meanwhile, you're like, I got to do this crap right here. And as he's walking home, a carload of chicks comes flying by in their car, having the greatest time. He gets home to his room. There's 50 messages that's left on his board here from Dean. And this is another thing. Was this ever a thing where you just put the pegboard or whatever this is called right here, and the parents would just leave messages on the kid's door? I mean, or is that just a movie or a TV thing?
I couldn't tell you. I'm glad you got this shot, though. I've always wondered what these little signs say because I never could read them fast enough. But you got one from Dean that says, "Congratulations, big guy," and then you got one from Charles over there. It says, "Let's go, let's go." Which I guess he's the creator of "Let's Go." You know, it's not Tom Brady. It's Charles from License to Drive. And then at the bottom, you got a message from Rudy that says, "A guy called for you."
A guy called for you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a joke because his 67-year-old brother didn't take a good message. It just says a guy called for you.
Oh, okay. You think that kid's 6 or 7? I thought he was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, probably.
And I guess we should have pointed out the fact that they talk about his sister's dating a commie, which was a big deal back in the 80s. You know, now you got communists everywhere. So there you go. His dad has left a present there for him, which is a BMW hat.
And this goes back to why I think he was going to do it, Ronnie. I mean, why else? You know, why else do this unless you're a horrible human being? This is something that would happen to us. Is we're giving you this gift. This is the BMW you're getting. It's on a hat. You know.
I didn't even put that in. You're right. He was going to buy him a freaking BMW. He wasn't just saying that to him to make him feel bad for lying and failing the test. But you can just feel the disappointment that this kid knows he screwed up, should have studied, should have took it serious.
But
Now,
he's
was
not
the
going to own up to it. He's not going to own up to it. He's going to try to hide it from everyone, get through the weekend, and retake it on Monday. Now, what were you about to say before I interrupted? Was the dad what?
going to buy 2 BMWs? Was he going to buy one for the daughter and one for him? Or were they going to have to share the car? I mean, how's that going to work?
You know, Ronnie, I think this is a 80s thing. I think just the boy was going to get the car. I honestly believe that. I mean, Les said at the dinner table she can use it too if she wants to. She says she's not interested in a car because her boyfriend says that's a sign of oppression.
It's true. Look in the background right here, though. He's got a guitar,
Yeah.
and a globe. What teen has a globe in their back of their room? Rocky Dennis had one because he liked to point out the place he could go that he wouldn't scare people.
Yep.
And you got that like messed up photo back there of like cars and stuff like that. What do you know?
I always love looking at kids' rooms in movies.
Yeah, I just want to know what these filmmakers thought kids were into.
The kid in Mac and Me had a cool room.
He did, but they had to make it cool because he was a cripple. I mean, that's one step above. I mean, he has a bad day. He's going to roll that wheelchair right off into a swimming pool. Then it's over.
Or off a cliff.
Or off a cliff down into a lake. Then it's over, unless Mac saves him. So the mother is doing the laundry and finds the note that says he's failed. This is after he's already lied to his parents. His dad's like, hey, you want to take the car out? And he goes, no, Dad, I'm tired. And they're asking what's wrong with him.
I'm a free man. Ronnie, he also lies to his friends. Like they call him and Dean is like, baby, go ahead, come get us. He's like, no, I can't. You know, got to run errands for my parents already or whatever. So it's like, why not? I don't know. He
didn't want to look like a loser or a failure to his family or to his friends. So he did what a kid's going to do. He's lying and he's going to try to fix it. But here's the thing. His dad goes, I knew what you thought you were going to do, but you're grounded for 2 weeks. There you go.
So, but he's about to call and ask Mercedes out. When Dad walks in, Mercedes says hello. And right as she says hello, Dad walks in and says, Mom's got brownies on the table. So that's the second time he's embarrassed him in front of Mercedes. So he's about to ask Mercedes out. Is he really going to use the car without a license? I mean, was that his plan then?
Maybe he was going to try to make the date for the next weekend, but you're right. He was going to take that car out. He was. All right, we get to take a break from this movie. Nick Push, AIM is a member of the medium-size shirt club. The only problem with that, Nick, is he was 16 years old. You are 46 and wear a medium shirt. So back to the review. I just love this scene right here because he tells him, he gives him champagne. He goes, thank you for saving me $25,000. And he goes, what are you talking about? $22,000 for the BMW, $3,000 for the insurance. I don't get it, Dad. He throws this out at him. Get it now? Boom, boom. This movie has such great music to it. And I'm not talking about the radio music. I'm talking about the score of the movie is so very teenish, Nickelodeon-ish. Those shows on Disney Channel, like Even Stevens, when something stupid or dramatic would happen, things like that just put the teens and the 43-year-olds like me into, I'm there and this is what happened. Now here is the commie that the sister's dating. He's trying to ask all kind of questions to the mother, and she starts off with a low what's her name?
And in this scene right here, we have 2 people that appeared on Seinfeld, Ronnie. We got Carol Kane, who threw the pocketbook out the window or got hit by the pocketbook.
I'd hate to distract from the hookers.
And do you know who this other guy is in Seinfeld?
Let me look at him.
You're never going to guess it. So why don't you just let me go ahead and say it?
I'll use up an hour of this stream trying to figure it out. Tell me.
Okay. He's in the smelly car episode. At the end of the episode, Jerry leaves the keys.
Oh, he's the street tough. Is sitting there on the steps and goes.
He gets in the car and gags and he goes off.
I would have never guessed that. That is amazing that we're picking movies with this many Seinfeld people in it. Okay, take a look at that clock Blake. First off, phone in the room was amazing back in the 80s. Having your own alarm clock was amazing. He's got some kind of model car there that may be from the cartoon show Mask. And
Is that a Redskins helmet?
Yeah, I think every boy in the 80s had those old football helmets right there. It is 11:15 at night, okay? And what's fixing to happen is Mercedes Lane calls him and says, hey, I thought we were going to go out. What kind of parents does she have that this 16-year-old girl is? Well, first off, I guess she has zero parents because this 16-year-old girl was dating a 30-year-old. And now she's just leaving in the middle of the night. I mean, you're not leaving at 11 o'clock except to go do one thing. I'm just saying. So he's.
I'm right there with you. I mean, Corey Haim laying in bed at 11:15, staring up at the ceiling. He's staring up at the ceiling because he's grounded and he can't do anything. But it's a terrible feeling when something bad happens and you just have to sit there and think about it the whole time. And he's just thinking about how he failed his test. He blew it. But his phone rings at 11:15. 11:15 at night, his phone rings and she's like, can you come get me? And he said, we get this breaking the fourth wall right here. An innocent girl, an innocent drive. What could possibly go wrong?
Definitely breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience.
He says, I'll be there in half an hour. So this movie don't get started till midnight. I mean, think about that, Ronnie.
Well, I mean, it's not that hard to imagine when the movie ends at dawn. The sun has come up. So right off the bat, he's caught. He is caught, Blake, because there's no explaining this in the morning time. He tries to roll the Cadillac out of there, and it runs over the hedge bushes. There's no explaining to the parents. There's no hiding from the parents that he snuck out that night. He is already caught 30 seconds into this plan. And he gets in the car and pulls off, and 30 seconds later, she thinks she's in labor. So he's got the worst luck ever. Not only did he ruin the hedges in the front yard, but he's going to pull off and leave his pregnant mom who goes into labor with no car to get to the hospital because the sister took the other car. And this is like a running theme for the rest of the movie. She wakes up at certain points throughout the rest of the movie thinking she's in labor, and the dad jumps up going and putting the pants on, telling her to breathe and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
she's either hot or she wants a sandwich or, it's always something. And he always comes really close to realizing that the Cadillac's not in the garage. And I love bits like that in the 80s where and you probably think of another example where on the TV in the background, you see the Cadillac, you see Les in the Cadillac, and you see the daughter in the middle of the protest, but they're not paying attention to the TV or whatever. Yes. I love bits like that. I think they did something similar to that in Planes, Trains, Automobiles. I can't remember, but when the wife is watching about the weather or something like that. But I just love it when stuff like that happens in those old 80s movies.
This is where I'm gonna just completely sour on Heather Graham, who I'm not a fan of anyway. She's a horrible human being. First off, she's super annoying as he's playing this music for her in this car. She's wearing a ridiculous outfit, and she's only got Corey Haim coming to get her so he can take her to wherever her ex-boyfriend is. She wants to go make up with her ex-boyfriend. I got this scene on here, Blake, just because he is so paranoid that he sees a cop turn down a road and he's staring at the cop the whole time. And I was able to freeze it right here. This cop staring at him while he's driving the whole night.
It's really scary. But listen, that's another thing that's real, Ronnie. Everyone has had that feeling when they're driving for the first time, or when you're driving without a license, which, I'm pretty sure I drove a car before I got my license at 15, but you pass by a cop and you're like, oh my God. And you got your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, and you're looking straight. You're trying not to look at the cop, or the cop gets behind you and you're just steadily looking in the rearview mirror and you pump the brakes. Everybody has been, like Nick said, even when you're driving drunk, you get really super nervous and you're really super focused, trying to concentrate until that cop's out of sight. It's just a real thing.
Nick just popped me. He joins in the conversation with her. When you're driving drunk, you try to be the best driver you can be. That dude's the best. Go subscribe to Nick Push's Horror Channel if you're watching this after the fact. But he's on pins and needles, and immediately she's like, hey, take me to this club. And they go into this club, and she leaves him. First off, he doesn't leave it with the valet because he sees them speed off and, do a donut. So he parks it across the road. But she jumps out of the car and runs in and leaves him, and the people at the velvet rope won't let him in. The bouncers won't let him in. You wouldn't be with her if you were a Siamese twin. And she goes in there straight to Paolo, and she goes, we need to talk, which means, thanks, Les, for dropping me off with my boyfriend. Now you can go away. She's a horrible human being. But Paolo, when he said ciao, he meant ciao, because he brings up Corey Feldman's real life girlfriend at the time and says, she's moving in with me. They haven't been broken up 3 or 4 days. And
Well, yeah, that lets you know what Paolo's been up to. I mean, he's got options.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at that guy. He's gorgeous. So what she does is she grabs the thing of champagne and runs out. Meanwhile,
after she slaps him really, really hard, Ronnie. I mean, she smoked, and it looks like he goes after her, but then it's a cut scene.
He grabs her by the hair and throws her down like Dana White. How about Dana White? Okay, let's stop talking about this for just a second. Dana White is like 53, 54 years old. How old is this guy? He's in a club in Cabo with his wife, which is miserable. Once you get to a certain age in life, the clubs are over with just because they're awful. They're awful. He's in a club with his super tight shirt on, and he is paintbrushing his wife. Both of them drunk, just wearing her out. She slaps him. He slaps her a few times. And he's got a slap league starting on TBS, a whole channel where they're doing that, slap challenge that you see on YouTube.
Oh, so it's a promotional thing?
It's almost too perfect for it not to be promotional. But TBS said, we're just going to back it up a week. What are you doing? Who's in charge over there? Okay, we know this guy just beat the hell out of his wife and it was caught on camera, and he wants to start a slap league TV show that we're going to, promote with him. We'll back it up a week as punishment.
Listen, I saw the clip you were talking about, and the only thing missing, honestly, is for Joe Rogan to come up afterwards and say, Dana, she got you early on. How was you able to bounce back and get the best of her?
You got her with the strikes. You ended it with strikes there at the end. How were you able to do that?
Yeah.
How does he show his face? How do the people that own the UFC? Now, I understand he owns like 5% of the UFC, which was pretty awesome because when they sold it, I think his shares equaled up to be like $300 million or $400 million. So how do they keep him on as the face of the UFC after that video is out there? I mean, that video, the one good thing about Dana White, the timing of this is I think some UFC fighter killed his wife over in Mexico 2 days later. So maybe people are talking about that instead of Dana White now. I don't know. But he's been such a jerk to everybody. They're not going to let that die. They're going to keep playing it over and over and over till they get him.
Well, yeah. As they should.
Some UFC fighter wrapped his wife up in a sheet, beat her head in, and then when the cops showed up, he said that she was cold, so he put a blanket on her, and he just thought she was asleep. He's in prison in Mexico. Anyway, back to Les. They were towing Grandpa's car, and he jumps on the front of the tow truck. Now, Blake, what am I about to say about Skullet right here?
You're going to say that he's Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
That's exactly what I'm going to say. The guy played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. So there's a fun fact for anybody that likes horror. It's watching. Dude's pretty jacked up in this movie too.
Yeah,
I mean, look at.
I read that he was a former pro wrestler, but there was like no notes or news on that about what he did. But yeah,
for some reason, Les Anderson has $80 that he gives him, and he just drops it right there. And
he's never had a job, and he's got $80, man.
I mean, I wonder what the dad does for a living. They can just buy a BMW and That's a good question. What do you think? And the mom obviously doesn't do anything. What does the dad do for a living that he makes all that money?
No clue.
So the rest of the movie, I mean, Les, who just wants this girl to like him, even though she's a horrible human being, she's drinking this gigantic bottle of champagne. He tells her that he's got enough. He's got 80 cents in his pocket. He has nothing to do. So she tells him about this place, F Point, that overlooks the city that her dad used to bring her to. And this is where she's like severely drunk. And instead of looking at her, all he can stare at is these high heels that let's talk about this too. I know what people are going to say. She's a drunk person, so drunk people are annoying. She was annoying before she got drunk, and she becomes even worse when she gets drunk because she just jumps up on this dude's hood and spinning around, scratching the hood up. So the rest of the movie is him trying to keep the car from getting damaged. Like when he's pulling through all these bushes, all you hear is like scratches happening. And like Blake said, there was a scene where he was going to play a mixtape and the cassette tape just shot it out, like ate it. And the only thing it'll play is the old school Frank Sinatra, as Les said, Grandpa's Top 10. So it's all old Frank Sinatra songs from here on out. And then she passes out in his lap. He obviously thought something else was going to happen, and it didn't. So that takes him over to Dean's house, and we get the boys back involved, Blake.
Yeah, they go back to Dean's house, and Dean makes a joke. Don't worry about the noise. My parents are vampires, which is a callback to Lost Boys. Apparently, Dean is he's like an AC Slater type. He's an expert mechanic, and he gets the dents out of the hood for him. And Charles is excited. He's got his, he's like you when you went through that gimmick. He's got his camera. He's taking pictures of everything. And he has to take pictures of Les' license. Of course, Les don't have a license, so he flashes his bus pass or his school pass or something like that. And Dean's like, look, I fixed the car for you. Why don't you take me to Archie's? He's like, I can't take you to Archie's. I got to get Mercedes home. And he's like, Les, the battery on this Mercedes is dead. Let's go to Archie's. And he explains that Archie's is like this mystical place where all cool cars go. And the only way to get there is if you have to have a license. And there's 5 girls for every guy that's out there. And it's in the middle of nowhere. I got the directions in my back pocket that my brother gave me. I mean, it's just this legendary place to him. And he talks him into it. So think about that, Ronnie. If Dean didn't talk him into that, he's taking her home right then. And then he's going to sneak the car back in the garage. He's probably home scot-free, right?
Except for the hedge bushes that are destroyed,
which you could blame on a passerby. You didn't necessarily have to be the Cadillac.
As they're driving, you just get to see how slow he's driving on the interstate. And then Corey Feldman's got the great can you take it out of neutral? He's got the great joke. Take it out of neutral. He just got passed by a street sweeper. And here we go with the jerks. Billy Idol and the crew, like you said, they're 30 years old. And when I first all the dozens of times that I've watched the movie, I never thought, why do they focus on these guys so much? We get them in the movie like 3 or 4 times. Why are we getting these guys in the movie so much? And it's because they were supposed to be the bad guys at the end of it, and it's cut out. So these guys pull up and they want to race, and Corey Haim acts like he's going to race them, but they take off and he just eases.
How you doing, girls? We driving grandma's car?
Oh my goodness. Now, Charlie with that camera flashes Les in the eyes. Dean's up front somehow, and they end up running through.
No, you got that backwards, Ronnie. Dean's in the back seat being a creep, taking pictures of Heather Graham's chest. And, Les is actually being a good guy saying, stop it, you idiot, put her clothes back on. And he flashes the camera to Les and blinds him, and that's what causes Les to lose control. And we get a great scene of a zoom in, real fast cut shot of all 3 of their faces screaming, and they crash through the fence and go down the hill and spin out into a parking lot in front of a pizza place.
Yeah, they come within like 2 feet of the car right beside them. Charlie takes Mercedes in, and she's passed out the table while he's eating and drinking. And Corey Feldman is working on Corey Haim here about, we have to go to Archie's. And Corey Haim's like, the night is over with, Dean. We're going home. And he just gives him the big speech right here. And I thought this shot right here was another iconic shot of the Coreys in a scene where, Dean's dragging Les into more trouble when when Les is trying to use common sense to get out of there. So they put Mercedes in the trunk. Always a great, solid move right there. And they head to Archie's Atomic. What do you think about this restaurant, Blake?
It was built up so much. And then when we see it, it does look good. It's really bright. But I got to say, Ronnie, like what kind of place like this, I guess we're just not used to it where we live, stays open past midnight, I mean, the only thing open past midnight around here is a Wendy's or a Waffle House,
Yeah, well, I mean,
but yeah, this is a Sonic bumper style restaurant where you just pull up and they have the menus or whatever, and people are skating to you. But this is a really cool place, man. Look at all the classic cars there. There's girls everywhere. This is a really happening place, and look how big that parking lot is. I mean, that's a great picture that you got there. Look at the cars lined up on the side of the road that you had. I mean, it's I mean, look at that. Look, I mean, it's it says coffee shop. Like, just how big is this place? I mean, it's massive, and
they built it up, yeah. And it's a Sonic.
And it's all it is a Sonic. You're right, but the hype is real. Like, this is a really cool place to hang out on the weekend. And the Ronnie, you talk about what you remember from this movie. Being obese my whole life, I struggle with the fact that he never got to eat this hamburger. Like, I really struggle. I really struggle with that in this movie. That food that waitress delivers never gets touched.
I would have held on to that hamburger to the end of the movie. You're right, though. There's all kind of classic cars here, and I got this scene right here. One, to show that the Cadillac does belong in this place, and two, just look at the cast of extras right there. Now, obviously, this is not a video, but if you look at the car that's right next to the yellow car right there with the white top right there, are you okay? There's just noise everywhere. The guy in the pink shirt is dancing if you watch the movie, and he's dancing the whole time they're pulling in. I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, they're going through there, and like you said,
hey, go back to the three girls for me, please. This is something else that they did in movies that I love. No, go back to the three girls. Yeah, there you go. This is something that they did that I really loved in 80s movies. Anytime it was, they did this in Rookie of the Year too. Anytime that you're going to pair off with girls, they try to mirror the girls with the guy, So you got Charles, who wears glasses and is kind of a nerd. You got the chick sitting on the car in the back that looks like Jamie Lee Curtis wearing glasses, So that's obviously going to be Charles' girl. You got the girl in the front who's kind of looks like she's wearing something leather, or corduroy. She's got her, that's going to be Corey Feldman's chick. And then you got the wholesome chick. You got the wholesome chick who's dressed, I'm not going to say casual, but she's dressed, kind of nice. That's going to be Les's girl. So I love when they do stuff like that. Like, which girl belongs to who,
Yeah, I thought that was Charlie in the back there. I thought they saved somebody by putting his dress. It's ridiculous. I was going to bring up the same thing. I'm glad you brought it up, but they did try. Like, if they had a buddy that was fat, it would have been a fat person back there.
It would have been a fat girl. Yeah, exactly. I love when they do stuff like that, man.
So things go horribly wrong whenever he opens the door and smashes it into the bad guys that's been following them been around the entire movie. They get out and they want to fight, and they're going to bash the car in. Now, Blake, originally, these bad guys destroy the car here at Archie's Atomic. They beat it with the crowbar. That's where all the damage takes place before they get out of there. But after they changed the ending, after test screenings didn't go so well, they peel out of there. One of them jumps on the hood and gets slung off. And the last time we see the bad guys, they are wrecking their car into the side of a car that doesn't look like it should be at Archie's Atomic. It looks like it's a regular old school police car back in the day. And that's the last time we see the bad guys with the hood folded up. And like I said earlier, when I watched this initially, I'm just thinking, okay, that's just characters. But these guys were supposed to be the bad guys, and that's why we got a couple of scenes early on, and that's the reason here they were supposed to be the one that would destroy Grandpa's car before they did the reshoots of the ending.
Well, did you read about? Did they get any kind of comeuppance against them?
I'm sure. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say they all got slung off the car, like what originally happens, and they just run away. I really don't know. I mean, I didn't look it up, and I doubt anybody can find it. But all the damage is fixing to happen. They added the drunk driver in after this. Is what they
Yeah.
did. And the great scene right here of Corey Feldman screaming, "Archie's come back, come back!" So they had about 3 minutes of like happiness. Even the girls showing up, going hi, and then they drive off, and they all three look sad. That's one hell of an acting role. They pull off into what the sister went to some kind of like protest, and like
Yeah.
the cops are raiding the protest, and as they start beating on this car that's in front of all the cops, she notices it's Les, and he's like, "Please don't tell Dad." And like you said, on TV, once again, the mother goes into labor, and on the TV in the background, you can see the cars and people being arrested and things like that. Which brings up a question, Blake: is the sister arrested, and did they have to bail her out of jail that next morning?
Well, what's cool is on the way to the protests, which they didn't know they were going to the protests at Allied Tech, they see the mom's car being towed away, and he's like, "That looks like my mom's Audi," you know. And you're right, like the sister gets arrested, and that's never addressed. Like I feel like that should have been brought up because no one asks the next morning when they're going to the hospital to deliver the baby. Nobody asks, "Hey, where's Natalie at? Natalie never came home last night. Where's Natalie?" Like we never get that moment where, "Hey, Les, you know what? You may have broke some rules. You may be in trouble, but you didn't get arrested like Natalie did." So, I felt like that could have added something to the scene.
They go
But
through
going back to what you were saying about the bad guys and how this drunk scene had to be added, I don't, Ronnie, I can't picture this movie without these scenes. Like, I can't picture this, and I know why they did it. It got bad reviews about glorifying drinking and driving, so they went back and added this to let give Dean the line, "Friends don't let friends drive drunk," and these cops are just looking for drunk. We're okay, Les. These cops are just looking for guys who are drunk, like this dick is what he says. The old guy in front of him.
the guy asked for this cop is great, by the way. His facials in this movie are amazing. He's like, "I need to see your license," and he goes, "I don't have it," and you hear him say in the background, "This guy doesn't even have a license," and the boys are looking at him like, "You left the first night, you left your license at home," and he has to explain to him he didn't get it. That was his bus pass that he flashed to him. So they get them all out, and
Another
they're
classic 80s thing. He's like, Dean's like, "Guys, you can relax. Calm down. We're juveniles. Nothing's going to happen to us." And then cut scene to, "Nothing's going to happen to us, huh, Dean?" And they're all bent over the car.
the cop opens up the trunk and sees Mercedes Lane, and he goes, "What the hell is this?" These guys are about to be in so much trouble. These poor parents are fixing to wake up to an idiot that's driving without a license, that's destroyed grandpa's car, and going to get arrested for packing somebody in a trunk. A daughter who got arrested at a protest event, multiple cars towed. It's going to be, and not to mention them with no way to go to the hospital when she goes into labor. Fortunately, they get the call that there's a riot at Allied Tech, and he goes, "This is your lucky night, punk." And they run off, and they get off scot-free. And they think the night is over. Meanwhile, the drunk who they had walking the straight line has wandered over to the car, and he drives off with their car. Luckily,
another Ronnie. Like we here we are again, the same thing. Like Les is finally going to get his comeuppance. He's finally going to learn his lesson. But no, the cops have to leave, and Dean's like, "Yes, I told you everything was going to work out." So like once again, Les should have been busted, and he wasn't. He doesn't have to. What's Nick saying? Jeez, man.
Corey Haim was bent over a lot of things in the 80s, I heard. And researching this movie, it's pretty depressing in the fact that Corey Feldman threw some really serious allegations of things that happened while they were doing this movie. Now, obviously, I didn't go and research it. I'm going by the IMDb / just Google frequently asked questions or fun facts about License to Drive. Is he being literal when he says things happen to him on this set? Or is he being figurative by saying this led to, you know, they just treated us like crap and didn't take care of us, and we're doing drugs on this movie and the adults didn't care. They just let us, you know, throw it all away. I feel like at this point, you can't take Corey Feldman serious in anything he says. He's got to be, he's looking for fame. He's looking for acting roles. I'm sure something horrible happened to him. I mean, he hung out with Michael Jackson to the point that he started dressing like Michael Jackson. So
I think Charlie Sheen was involved too.
He still dresses like Michael Jackson. He has severe psychological issues. And I mean, it happened. It happened, I guess. I mean, hopefully he can find help. I'm just going to focus on the actual movie instead of all the horrible things that he says happened. The movie gets actually pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Action packed right here, because you got a good car chase scene and some actual good stunt work right here. They try to and of course we get more scenes of this guy just trashing this car. He's running over and through things and against bridges, and they get Charlie to hang out the window and say, I think you got our car, because I guess I didn't mention the fact they jumped in his punch bug right here to chase after him. He's throwing up in the car. And he's the worst, the absolute worst. There's a scene where he's like gargling with liquor and he spits it up on the windshield and then he just passes out. And
he's cutting up limes, Ronnie, to make drinks.
See, look at this freaking scene right here. They had a stunt guy for a movie called License to Drive. They had a stunt guy do this stunt for this movie that they added in later on. We got to bring in the stunt guy because we got to put a little action at the end of the movie. Look at the front of that poor car. It is done. Wes Anderson's done. The best thing he could have done was throw himself under that car.
Look at this bridge they're on, man.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. This, I mean, I think we don't pay attention to the background scenery of this movie enough. I think it might be like really, really good. So here we go. They get the car back. There's the last little gag. There's the last little gag where Corey Haim goes, I think the car will be okay. And he hits the top of it and the back glass busts out. It's morning time now. This whole adventure has lasted all night because, like Blake said, it started at 11, like 18. He drops the guys
So something that's about to happen, Ronnie, that really bothers me. It makes sense when Charles and Dean say, this was a fun night. Good night, Les. Because that's what you say. Even if it's morning time, if you spend all night with somebody, you say good night because you're going inside to go to bed. Well, later on, like Mercedes is like, sorry, I was so sleepy tonight or something like that. And like there's multiple references about tonight. And like the dad says, you're lucky your mother didn't go into labor tonight. And it's like already morning. Like, what are you guys talking about? I mean, I don't know. It just bothered me. I guess it's like a where you live kind of thing. But yeah, right here, you know, he's like, license or no license, this really sets the tone. If this was our first night out, Les, this was amazing, and I can't wait till we start hanging, till we are able to do this like every single week. And Les is like, yeah, good thing you're not getting your license for a few more months, huh, Dean? So I guess Les is supposed to be older than Dean in this. I don't buy that. I
don't either at all. He carries her sorry ass to the door because she's the worst. I don't know if I've added that in.
No, she's not. She's not. I mean, you're overreacting just because you hate any kind of female in a role ever. She's not bad.
Awful human.
Why? Why is she awful human?
Dude, we've discussed this. She only had him take her out so she could go meet Paolo. She was going to drop him like a bad habit. And then she got drunk and passed out. She didn't want to hang out with this guy. And now
she took him to Lookout Point.
Yeah, but she took him to Lookout Point to dance on the hood and talk about her dad. She didn't take him to Lookout Point to do anything good. And then at the end, when they added in these extra scenes, I guess they gave her a little well, you were really nice to me last night and all that crap. I mean, get the hell out of here. She's awful.
She was wanting to do something good on the hood, and he freaked out.
Here's what's going on. The mom really does go into labor, and as they get down into the garage, it's a really cool scene as Les is easing the car into the garage as the doors open.
As he's pulling in the driveway, Ronnie, you talked about earlier, like going to your parents to tell them the news. As he's pulling in the driveway, he goes, "All right, here we go."
Oh gosh, this is supposed to be horrible. And when he sees this car, like she starts crying and goes, "I think it was just gas." And he sees this car and he's like, "Whoa, what is going on?" And he's walking around looking at how this car is destroyed. And one of my favorite scenes is this right here. Look how tiny this human being is that he was able to get down into the floorboard to try to hide from his father. And the dad's got such a great line. "Something wrong with your bed, Les?" And why?
What is that in the front seat?
Looks like a pillow.
So is he sitting on a pillow?
Dude, I have no idea. Maybe it's like some kind of back support for the grandpa.
I got
That's a great question. I never noticed that. Looks like that Hulk Hogan doll you got right there. So the dad is reaming him and about to kill him, and the mom really does go into labor, and she says Les can drive, and the dad goes, "Get us there." And you get your last big car scene or car chase or, car chase, not really a car chase, but car scene of the movie where Les stops at a red light out of the blue. And he's like, "What the hell are you doing? There's nobody around for miles. Your mama's pregnant. Let's go." And the car is so messed up that now it will only go in reverse. So you get all this stunt driving of him going in reverse, and he goes down the sidewalk. Blake, look at this screenshot right here. The waiter who's got the zoom in. Whoa, look how close the waiter is to the car right here.
Yeah.
He would have killed multiple people if it hadn't been so early in the morning. And here's another question. What restaurant is setting up this early in the morning on the sidewalk? It's got to be like 6 a.m., right?
Breakfast.
I buy some breakfast. They get to the garage. They get to the hospital. They get her out, woman in labor. And he's like, "Come here, come here, come here. Where'd you learn to drive like that?" And he goes, "Last night, I guess." And he goes, "I guess it was a hell of a crash course." And he goes, "This is where you're talking about he's taking it easy on him. It's okay. We'll buff these. We'll get this car fixed up before Grandpa gets home. Everything will be okay." And about that time, they drop this beam right on the car. And I'm going to bring it up again. Why the hell are these construction workers working at 6 o'clock in the morning? Shouldn't it be like a couple of hours later that they get started? But the car is completely destroyed. And this is where I originally think the movie ended, Blake, because if you go back, and I want you to after we get through with this review, go back and look at this scene. It's one of those slow scenes where they're barely moving, and I think we were going to get the credit scene after this right here. I really do. And the reason I say that is because they added these scenes in afterwards. The scenes with the grandpa were added in for the new ending. And not
can you take me back to the bean real quick? Because I got two things to say about that. So where I thought they were going, Ronnie, is I thought it was going to be like, well, okay, guess what? This construction company has to buy us a new Cadillac now. Like they have to reimburse us for that. That's where I thought they were going. And then I got to thinking, if this happens 40 seconds earlier, this entire family's dead.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I never would have thought of either one of those scenarios, but you're absolutely right.
And Natalie stays in jail.
Never gets out. So, like I said, now we're introduced to the twins. And like you said, this is their second set of twins. So 5 kids total. And the dad's like, "Don't worry. He's going to want to come in and see the babies. The car's going to be the last thing on his mind." And I wish I would have got the screenshot of him like pushing Les in front of him. Because the first thing the grandpa says is, "Where's my caddy?" And he goes, "Les did it. Les did it." And that I just wanted to make the point that it doesn't matter how old you are, you always fear that parent. And you do anything to try not to get in trouble from that parent. And when he takes him out to see it, he's like, "What the hell is that right there?" And he goes, "That's your caddy, Grandpa." And he starts laughing. And then all of a sudden, boom, he said, "I have a little problem with your car as well." And there's the car. Apparently, the grandpa had his own adventures with the car right there. and he's laughing, and it all turns 80s-tastic at the very end of it. Les goes,
Yeah,
jumps in the car.
everybody's laughing. Like the grandpa's laughing. The dad's like, Les, you said you want a BMW. Here, take mine. It's yours. Take good care of it. He's laughing. Like, no, there. It just goes to show you, like, there's no consequences. Like,
When you're rich and
and exactly. And then, what's her name? Mercedes pulls up, and he goes, I don't need a BMW. I don't need a BMW, Dad. I got a Mercedes, which is a great line. But I got a question, Ronnie. Is this Mercedes' car?
Yeah.
Why is she walking home from school every day?
Exactly. And why didn't they take? Maybe she's just taking the parents' car. Who knows? I don't know. They fly. I mean, they drive off in this beautiful neighborhood right here. I mean, look at that neighborhood. Everybody wants to live there. I don't care what you say. Everybody wants to live in this neighborhood.
Get out of my dreams. Get into my car.
And freaking, that's it. That's licensed to drive, Blake. I mean, that's licensed to drive. So
it was really. I stand by what I said earlier. This is the best movie we've ever reviewed. This 31 Days of Horror. This was so much fun, dude. Like, I love this movie. I'm probably going to fall asleep watching this movie again tonight. For those of you out there, you can rent it on Amazon Prime, or if you have YouTube TV, it is on demand. Just the best Corey's movie there is. I said it. It's better than Lost Boys. I don't care. It is. It is the best. It is so good.
If you like teen 80s movies, this is in the top 10. That's another fantasy draft. Teen 80s movies. We got to do a fantasy draft. Next fantasy draft is going to be on breakfast cereals, Blake. We got to get the rest of the idiots to agree to a time and a date. That's the toughest thing about these fantasy drafts. So I'm going to echo what you said. I absolutely love this movie. I own the VHS. I own the DVD. These characters played a big role in me growing up because this movie was released when I was 7 years old. So I've seen this movie a lot through my preteen and teen years. The characters were great. The parents were great. The scenery, the car chase scenes, a lot of love was put into this movie. And like I said, I'm not going to talk about what happened behind the scenes, but a lot of love was put into this movie. And I had to look it up to see what this director had done. I mean, he's done Bushwhacked. That's another movie that he did. But
it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie too. I mean, this is a really good movie. If he only made or directed this movie, I mean, this is an iconic. When you think iconic 80s movie right here, this movie is great. It really is. And without this movie, are the Coreys as famous as they are?
No, they're not.
I don't think so either. So 1 to 10, Blake, what are you rating it?
This is a 9 out of 10. All that's missing in this movie is the F word and nudity.
Well, the F word was actually cut out because I did read, and IMDb, thank you, that in some home releases in England, that the F word was kept in to some VHS releases. So,
okay. So we'll just get up with Darren and find out what scene it was.
There you go. He's got it. I like that, Blake. I'm going to say 9 out of 10 as well. I mean, this is a great movie. This is an iconic 80s movie with iconic 80s actors. These guys were on the cover of every magazine, teen magazine. They were at every party, and that's probably part of the problem of where they are right now. Party hard, baby. And
favorite character in the movie, Ronnie?
Early on, I said the dad.
I'm sticking to that.
I like the dad. I really do. This may be the only movie, like I said earlier, where I prefer the Corey Feldman character over the Corey Haim character. Really good movie. Really good movie. Both of us gave it a 9 out of 10. Hit us up in the comments. If you didn't watch this live, let us know what you think about License to Drive. atgnat@gmail.com. If you want to email us, all our socials are down below. Another week in the books, another live stream. These things are getting a little easier, Blake. This was the longest one because it's about to clock in at 2 hours. But there are certain movies where you have to have the screenshots. And I think that might be your gimmick now. I mean, we stole it from Vaughn and them. I love having the visual aids. It's like being able to watch the movie without watching the movie. Okay? So do we want to go ahead and tell them what we got next week, or let them
Yeah.
wait?
Just throw out the list. That way, if anybody else comes out with it, we'll be like, hey.
All right. So next week, let me pull the list up real quick. Next week, we will be reviewing live Thursday at 8:00, unless something changes. James Cameron, 1984's The Terminator. I don't think we've ever reviewed The Terminator, Blake, whether it be audio podcast. I know we definitely haven't done it since we've moved to YouTube. I cannot wait to review The Terminator with you next week and talk timelines, accents, action, futuristic, Michael Biehn, Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, the guy from Pumpkinhead whose name I can't think of, all that stuff. It's going to be an amazing review. And over the next couple of months, Porky's, Groundhog Day, Hudson Hawk, Rad, The Burbs, Just One of the Guys, The Barbarians. We've got a ton of movies that we're going to sit down with you on Thursday nights, and we're going to talk about them. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Blake, I'm out of stuff to say. What are we going to say now? Get out of my dreams?
So long, everybody.
See you guys.